Yes, it says we are live.
All right.
Awesome. So, I am Peter Palmiotti, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's been forever since I posted videos and whatnot, but I am going to be getting back into this, and I am joined today on Independent Crossroads with my friend Paul Caggegi. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Peter. How's it going? Glad it was convenient for both of us.
Yes, we're both working on commissions.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I'll show mine. If people look very closely, they can see. um, but yeah, we figured we'll start off the conversation talking about commissions and talking about prices, and I'm just getting my reference to the side so I could see it without covering you.
Yeah.
Yes. So, where do you want to start?
Where do you want to start? Geez. Well, first of all, what commissions are you working on at the moment?
Well, I got a stack of pencil commissions from Free Comic Book Day, and I was at the store, and I did probably like four while it was during Free Comic Book Day, and but I had the rest of the list to go, and I've been doing them in between everything else.
Right.
So it was the first time I did Free Comic Book Day, first of all, and as a way to promote the store, which is, the comic book store has been in this town for about a year, and they recently moved, but that's has nothing to do with anything. But I wanted to promote the store, and the couple that runs it, Bobby and Blake. Bobby's the girl. Are a married couple, and they're really awesome people. And there for Halloween after hours, we had a whole bash there, drinking and food and everything. Met a lot of their regular customers and friends, and yeah, I've been talking to them since they've landed in Campbellsville, our small town here out in Kentucky. And yeah, I wanted to do something more for them than for myself. That's why I made the commissions free. Because otherwise, I probably could have made some decent bucks. What I did do is I didn't charge anybody for them, but I did have a tip jar. And I think I pulled in like $60 just from people tipping. And it was like totally appreciated.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I had a blast. I mean, like I said, I'd never done Free Comic Book Day. It just has never worked. I probably went to a comic shop once or twice as a customer during Free Comic Book Day, but never, just sat behind a table, and I had my computer there, which I brought there, and my scanner. It was like I had my studio in the store. It was really awesome, and just to see kids walk up and, hey, what are you drawing, and smiling and just interacting with everybody. It was a blast.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. I actually do love the whole portable workstation thing works really well. I've done a couple of school visits, and my daughter at the moment, who is school age, she's begging me to come into her classroom with my computer. And classrooms are set up now that you can just plug in your laptop or whatever, and just sit there with your Wacom tablet on your lap and just start drawing, on the programs that you got. And the way that the kids' eyes just light up when they just sort of see this, they're like, "What magic is this?" It's
yeah,
and they're just like so blown away by it. And, you know, to us, it's like, oh, yeah, this happens every day. But to them, it's like, oh, my goodness, you know, my favorite characters are coming to life on a screen. And yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to share and to watch with them. Yeah, so I love that. And it's one of the things that I wanted to do the next time I get into conventions, because at the moment I've had to take a bit of a convention break. Just no new books I've had that are sort of ready to share, but also I've wanted to do this thing where, you know, you do bring the portable workstation with you to a convention table. You pay for I don't know, some conventions sort of charge you to have power at your table, but then I'd sort of like have a camera set up, like a camera on a stand with a screen behind me. And so as I'm working, they can actually see what I'm working on.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a really good draw card at a convention, because you can put, you know, the screen nice and high, so people walking past just sort of like catch a glimpse of it from a distance. It's something I wanted to do for a while. So yeah.
It would definitely be a crowd pleaser, I think.
Oh yeah, especially if you're sort of working on something right then and there. I mean, one thing I do at some conventions, what I've done for the past couple of years, is I've gone to a local games convention called EB Games Expo, put on by a store called EB Games, and a friend of mine runs a lounge section in the hall, and basically people get to come and sit on these comfy beanbag sort of, well, he calls them love sacks. So, so I can't really say they're beanbags. No, they're love sacks. So, yeah, people come and sit there, and I'm up on the little stage in front for a couple of hours, and I take commissions. But what I do is, as I take them, I say, well, look, I can do a sketch for, you know, this much, yeah, some small amount like $10 or whatever. But what I can do is I'm doing these digital commissions, and I haven't got my computer with me. I'll take your commission, I'll take your money, I'll start the sketch, and then what I'll do is I'll go home and I'll email you and say, hey, listen, this is the sketch you wanted, and I'll start doing it digitally, and I'll turn it into a poster. So a lot of people actually like that idea, and it takes a little while. And, you know, one year I got like 20 commissions to get through, and having to sit there and do, you know, 20 digital posters, it takes a while. So, you know, the constant communication had to be, you know, the channels had to be open with all of them. Oh yes, look, I'm just working on this one, I'll be on to yours next week and whatnot. But they were always so extremely patient and really nice to deal with. And you know, I think that whole interaction thing is so important in sort of like keeping that customer happy.
Right.
So yeah, I really sort of enjoyed that side of working on commissions. Definitely.
So before the video started up, we're going to talk about pricing. You want to dive into that?
Yeah, sure. What, do you want me to start, or do you have like a rant opening? Or
I mean, mine's pretty straightforward. I'll review mine for everybody watching now. Yeah. These are pencil sketches. I spend way too much time on them. Probably an hour and a half. A number of them I spent longer. I don't even keep track. It's just, you know, it's a very loose sketch of the character outline, and then I go in and add a lot of shading and detail and just put my heart and soul into it. This is new to me, just working exclusively in pencil after years of inking. So I'm trying to up my game with my abilities, which is anything an artist does is with that objective, I believe. So these are 9x6 on Bristol. Bristol board, Bristol paper, and shooting for $30 a pop. And I think that's a fair price. You know, I sort of gauged the market, asked a bunch of friends, and the consensus was that that seems like a fair price. Now, mind you, you know, there's been no consistency to my career whatsoever, but meant to be more consistent and you know, because I've done piles of commissions for people, but it was like, you know, one year I'd be doing 8x10 bus, and then another year I'll be doing like watercolor sketch cards, and then you know, it's like I guess going with the trends. But yeah, so this is currently pretty much what I'm focusing on right now. I'll expand above and beyond, like adding different kinds of commissions available. But you know, since I owe not only a couple of these pencil ones, I owe some other fully ink pieces. Not really seeking more people to buy commissions at the moment. You know how a lot of artists I see have, you know, commissions closed currently. That's my status until I get on the ball and finish these off. Then I'll feel happy to open it up again.
So I suppose that the question that does the rounds on, you know, commission pricing is, how much do you charge, and how do you come to this figure? You know, and it sort of falls somewhere in between. You know, okay, look, you're a professional illustrator, great. So you should be working out an hourly rate based on, you know, what you can afford to, you know, the time you can afford to spend on stuff. You know,
Right.
But I do that for my video work, and I do that for my motion graphics work, because the companies that hire me they're studios, you know, and they hire you for 2 weeks straight, and the work is going to clock up a couple $1,000s, you know. And
Yeah.
the sad thing is that you're going to spend about the same time. You're going to like on a really detailed commission, you're probably going to spend a good week or two just working on it, from the penciling, layout, inking, coloring. But a single customer who's met you at a con probably isn't going to want to pay you, like, say, $2,500 for a drawing. And so,
Yeah.
like, because it seems unrealistic from the customer perspective. I found, and that's sort of like that bittersweet thing where, yeah, you welcome the work, but at the same time, their customer experience is that they're there for an entertaining show, I guess. You know, they're there to take a walk around, and they can pick up a poster for a couple of bucks. They can pick up a comic. They can buy, you know, even an art book or something like that. And what they're prepared to spend and what a client is prepared to spend are just radically different things, you know? Yeah.
You have to value it against the market, you know.
Yeah.
See what everybody else is charging, consider the amount of years you've been working in the business is also a factor. You know, it's really, you know, it's like, you're not going to get a sounds. These are commissions. These are like, you know, there are people out there charging $5 for 11x17, you know, X-Men group shot in full color.
Which is technically, and I suppose we should talk, like, we should definitely talk about, you know, fan art, you know, which is what it is, you know. Yeah, they're charging $5 exactly. Sorry, complete your point. Sorry.
Oh no, it's just if you go, if somebody just wants something, um, you know, not really awesome, just something middle of the road, just an illustration of an idea they had, or just, you know, group shot of their favorite team or whatever. Look at artist after artist after artist for rates and you know, ability. They could find somebody just as good as us, but way cheaper if they look hard enough. Now, mind you, like, that's like, okay, say you're walking down the street in some city and you're looking for a slice of pizza. You know, there's one on this on the side, or there's one across the street. The one you're on is $5 a slice. The one across the street is $3 a slice. Do you cross the street for $3 a slice? You know, it's like, if you take the extra effort, you need to save a couple of bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always the case. You're always going to find something cheaper. I mean, I found, like, in freelance work a little while ago, there was a website that came out where you could find a freelancer online, and I thought, oh, hey, what a great idea! You know, I could put my name down for this, and I could find you know, remote work, and I can do some work from home, and there could be some overseas clients, and yada yada. Little did I realize it was the entire market was saturated with a lot of people charging ridiculously cheap rates.
Yeah.
And of course, the problem with that is that, again, you know, the customers looking at these websites, they're not studios, they're not, you know, higher end of town type, you know, people who are, you know, legitimately working on, you know, big $100,000 campaigns for ads. They're people who want you to edit their wedding video or whatever, and then some guy overseas says, oh yeah, I'll do it for $5 an hour. You just can't compete with that, you know.
Want to.
Yeah. But of course, you know, this is sort of
you know, I look at it as this, you know, anybody in the comic industry knows that, like, you know, all these artists going to comic conventions, they're selling the comics they make, and they do commission art like we're talking about on the side. It's the rates are fair, you know, in my eyes. Like, you know, you can buy a print that's much cheaper, and they'll make some money off the print, but they won't make the same amount. You know, they'll make more if you get a commission from them. It's not an hourly rate. It's not what they deserve. But it's really, how I see it is, you buy anything from the artist that's supporting the artist.
Yeah.
For them to live another day, you know.
Yeah. I think I was having a discussion about poster rates. You know, what do you charge for a poster? What do you charge for a comic? And it comes down to the profit margin, right?
Right.
You can sell a poster for $5. Like, let's say, oh, hang on a sec, I've got to do a quick conversion to just a second. Okay, 3 inches. Curse your imperial system. So we've got we've got the metric system, and we do things with, you know, A0, A1, A2, A3. That's sort of like the system that I grew up with. You guys have a different system. I forget, it's like a letter size, or but you say, like, 8 by 10 or whatever. A3 posters about 12 by 17 inches, right?
Yeah, so we do 11 by 17. It's basically the same.
Yeah. 11 by 17. Yeah, it's a same size, slightly different format. Let's say 11 by 17. Right?
Okay.
You can sell an 11 by 17 poster for, say, $5 on a table, And the profit margin you're making it could be close to 80% because it costs you maybe $1
Yeah.
a print. If you go down to like your we've got Office Works, you got what's your printing
Local. Well, we have none, but just copy centers.
copy centers? Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's FedEx, Kinko's, there's
Kinko's, yes.
yeah, other Staples, other brand names like in cities and whatnot.
Yeah, but like your Kinko's, right? You go down
Yeah.
there and you can get a 11 by 17 inch poster printed for maybe $1, right?
Right.
And so selling that for $5, the customer feels as though they're getting a bargain because, hey, it's just a $5 poster. I can go home and I can maybe spend some money on the frame and I can put this on my wall. Yeah. And you're making $4 on that.
Yep.
Right. Whereas a standard size, 6 by what's the comic size over there? It's 10 by 6 or something.
8 by 10.
8 by 10. Okay, yeah, I'll go with that. 8 by 10. Yeah. So your standard comic to print costs a lot more. You got a 24-page interior page count, and it's going to cost you maybe, or let's say, what's Kablam charging these days per unit? Something like $2.60 or something like that.
Probably.
Selling a comic for $5, you're going to make back $2. You're going to make maybe 20% on that. So selling a lot of posters as opposed to a lot of comics, you got to sell more comics basically to make your money back than you do posters. And a poster is a smaller time investment as well. And so having that generally saves your back pocket by having posters at the ready to, just prints, original or otherwise, I guess. They're what make back your money in a shorter turnaround. So even without commissions, selling a handful of posters, you make back $80, $100 very, very quickly. And you may only sell a handful of your books,
Right. But I mean, you look at it like, well, they'll read the comic, they'll put it down, pick it up again, flip through it, just glaze at the art, like any fan of a comic. It's like I look at it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's value in giving him a complete something, even though you're making less of a profit. It's like in the long run, well, what if it's ongoing series and they'll pick up issue 2, issue 3, they'll tell their friends and their friends will pick it up. And
I mean, that's the ideal. I mean, that's what you want to do. That's the sale you want to make because it's a slow burn. It's at the, or if you want to be really pessimistic, it's the long con. But yeah, that's what you want to do, and you make those fans really, really slowly. So it's always that way up between building an audience and making a sale. You want to make your money back. For 4 years running, I went to the same convention and I made a loss every single year. But in the future, in the later years, I would go to a second or third convention where it would be purely commissions that I was doing for people, or selling a lot of original art, and that not only paid my way for that convention, or sometimes I was given a free stand, which was really nice. So the profits I made kind of made back the shortfall on the convention I'd made the loss on. So you sort of have to space it out over the year or over a number of years, I guess.
Yeah.
But sort of getting back to the commission thing, what you charge. So what's the ballpark over there in the States for, you go to a San Diego or New York Comic Con, right? You walk around the floor there. What are you likely to be charged by an artist? And does it differ based on whether this artist is attached to, a big name, like, hey, this is, Jim Lee is sitting at a stand selling commissions. What does he charge as opposed to, let's just, it's for lack of a better term, a no name,
Yeah. Now it's been a while since I was really doing cons and whatnot, but just going by what I see online and people talking about it, and obviously if it's a name and they're looking to make a decent wage, commission could be like 75 or 100 if they're a name, and like for 8.5 by 11 con sketch, which could be anywhere from barely an outline of a character to something like duo shade color or something. It's they're not going to spend an hour on it. They don't want to keep their head down during the whole convention. They actually like to see what's going on while they're having fun, as well as working. But a no name could charge for the same thing, $20, $10.
Yeah.
It really varies, and that's why you scout the convention before you start.
Right.
Once you set your table up and hopefully you have somebody with you, you say, okay, you watch the table, I'm gonna go and scout. You check out what everybody else is charging, and that might alter your price, what you were thinking you might have charged. If the convention is running, prices are running low, then it's foolish because nobody's going to bite unless they traveled really far to get the convention just for you.
Yeah. Which is not really the case, is it? Like, especially for
not at the moment.
Starting out,
Yeah, but in time it could happen.
Yeah.
But it's really tricky. You want to be fair. You want obviously people to enjoy what you're doing for them, and but it's like you're only charging a portion of really what you would make on a real job.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's not. It's very difficult to compare it to client work. It's still a job. And that's sort of where the divide is really. These are hours that I'm spending working on producing this thing, and it's hours that I'm sitting at my computer when I could be working on other stuff. And if you had to sort of break down, let's say it was a little bit of a higher price. Let's say it's a $40 commission, and you spend 4 hours on it, you're working at $10 an hour, which, if you wanted to be really cynical, you may as well be, flipping burgers to make a better rate,
Right.
But you get absolutely no enjoyment out of it, and you get absolutely no recognition for what you're doing, really, but there are cases, of course, and so at the moment, I think the discussion around the Australian scene is, what should we be charging for our commissions? And a lot of people, because like we're a really small pond over here, it's the same faces you're seeing over and over and over again, and the market needs to support everyone, and it's very difficult to speak optimistically about it. I mean, granted, it has grown in the past 5 years. The Australian comic book scene has grown, and there are fans now that attend more than one convention. So
Right.
they see you at convention one, they get to know you, they like you, and then they ask, the question you most get asked is, will I be seeing you at the next convention? And so you're very likely to get a return customer in the same year. But you're also going to be seeing the same competition, the same artists. And we're sort of at this threshold level where technically the artist you're sitting next to is your competition, but there's a real sense of camaraderie in the Australian comic book industry at the moment, where people are sort of like banding together and saying, right, we need to set these rates. You know, we don't want to undercut each other, because we still need to let the customer know that these are the prices we need to charge and whatnot. So, you know, you're walking around a convention. Sorry?
I'm just thinking that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I'd like to think that everyone would sort of like band together and say, yeah, hell's yeah, let's do this, you know. But then how far do you push it, you know? I mean, you still can't sort of have an artist alley where everyone's charging $100 a commission. People would rather that they feel as though that was a bit too expensive, if you know what I mean. You know, I mean, as a customer, you know, I'm a dad. I go to a convention with my kid, and it is about the enjoyment. You know, it's about getting there and seeing stuff. And oh, look, this person's art, I really like it. How much? And generally, if someone says, for me to get an 11x17 color poster, they're charging me $100 for it, I think twice, you know. And that's from the perspective of an artist. Whereas if they're going to tell me maybe half that, if it's an original piece, I can see the effort in it, and my kid is saying, hey, I really like that, and they say it's, say, $50, I might consider it, you know.
Right.
And that sort of makes sense to me from a customer perspective. And so, yeah, I think what the point that we're both agreeing on and we're sort of getting to is that there's this balance between what it actually costs and what the customer is expecting to pay.
Yeah. And the two should never meet.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah. Boy, did that sound a bit too ranty? I was trying to sound really up and optimistic about it, because at the moment I am.
It's, you know, it's, you know, let's face it, comics is not a start if you want to make money. There's plenty of things you can do. You know, you could tell people 5 different ways to make quick money on the internet, and that's your business, you know. And make more money than what we doing and doing comics.
So how is your Nigerian prince scam going?
I just sent out 100 emails. Let's see how many I get back.
Yeah, I guess that's the bottom line. I mean, but yeah, we do this because it is a passion as well, isn't it? You know, it's something that we want to get good at, and we sort of want to be recognized for it at the same time.
Yeah.
And speaking of recognition, I know the outcome of something that I did recently, which the outcome wasn't what everyone was hoping for, but I recently, boy, is this going to say? I've got no segue for this, actually. Okay. I applied to the DC Masterclass workshop recently.
Oh, right. I saw you post about that. Go on.
Yeah, and I had some really great help. And yes, I think I approached you at some point to get some advice or at least a reference. But this other reference of mine, I'm not using his name because I'm not kind of advertising him as, you know, he doesn't do this as a service thing. It was kind of like, you know, I'd done some work for him, and he's very well respected in his circles, and sort of just saying his name sort of feels like I'm advertising him, and I kind of don't want to do that out of respect for him. But he has done work for DC before, and he's done big, you know, name movie posters for Ridley Scott and stuff like that. So I approached him as I approached you, and I said, oh, look, could I get a reference for this? And he goes, dude, send me your outlines. I want to see what you're doing. I want you to like present the best possible application for this workshop. You know, I'm going to try to get you to make you get it. I'm
Right.
like, dude, I really appreciate that, but I know you got a lot on your plate, work-wise. His wife was pregnant with the second kid. So he really didn't have to go out of his way, you know. But we went like 10 rounds over 2-3 weeks, and I just kept sending him these 3 sample pages based on a DC script. And I said, okay, look, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? And he would just, in the middle of the night, he'd look at it and just fire back all this stuff, all this
That's
advice,
awesome.
you know. And I would just take it all on board. I was just like, bring it on. I'm absorbing all of this. And I would correct everything with his changes, and then I'd send stuff back and he'd have more changes, and he'd be telling me what was good, what was bad. And yeah, we would just went round after round after round. I polished these pages up and made that part of my submission. He wrote me this amazing reference, which I still, you know, am so grateful for. I was just absolutely blown away. And I just think I put my best possible foot forward, right? I did everything that I possibly could to present something that was my best work. You know, what's that old, you know, that standard line that a lot of artists say, that if you're going to a portfolio critique, and the thing they hate hearing is, well, you know, this isn't my best work. They hate hearing that.
Like, I left that in the car.
Yeah, and they're like, well, what the hell are you showing me then? You know,
Yeah.
Why didn't you bring your best work? So I felt that I had put my best work forward. And this morning I was up at 5 because my youngest, she's an early riser and it's not great. So I'm downstairs and I'm checking emails, and suddenly there's this thing, DC workshop. My heart starts beating. I'm like, you know, I'm hyperventilating, and I open it up, and it's basically a very polite, you know, rejection. You know, it's a very polite, look, we had a lot of submissions. There was a lot of talent, but unfortunately you have not been selected for this workshop. Although we, you know, enjoyed seeing your application. We hope you apply again in the future. And instead of, you know, wanting to throw my phone across the room and sort of like say, you know, you don't know what you're missing out on, DC, you know, as you get that reaction a lot. I was really not disheartened. I mean, I was kind of expecting it because, as you know, there's a heck of a lot of talent out there. You know, you just have to look at what people are posting online, and you sort of like, you envy them, you know, you're just like, oh, why are you so good? You know, you go full on Yosemite Sam on them. Just, oh, but no, I sent this heartfelt thank you to my friend. I said, look, I didn't get it. Here's the thing, but I want you to know that I felt like I went through a masterclass with you over those 3 weeks, just preparing this. And I was just encouraged to just do it again, you know.
Right.
Why did I bring this up? Do you remember what we were talking about?
Oh, because you want to show your best work at a portfolio?
Yes.
Yeah.
You definitely want to show your best work. But no, well, I had a point. I had a point about damn it. Well, I guess that's my experience. Yes, it was no segue, and yes, I just had this experience applying to the DC masterclass. I think that this year what I wanted to do was really brush up on my my work. Hang on, what have I got here? Sorry, I think I've lost track of my layers here as I've been talking. This is you know, you're Italian like me, right, Peter?
Yes.
You talk you talk with your hands. So as I'm talking, I'm just like, my screen is frozen because I'm just gesticulating wildly with my hands. So I'm getting no painting done. All right, let's get back into some painting. Yeah, so this year, stuff like this, I don't feel that losing out on this opportunity was at all in vain. It was something that you hear it, you must hear it from time to time, all these people just saying, oh, I never want to work for the big two because I have too much integrity, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just thinking, well, I respect someone like yourself who's actually worked for a major company, right? Was it?
I worked for
Vertigo?
DC and Marvel.
Yeah, you've worked for them both. And so if you said, I prefer to take the independent route, I feel a lot more respect for you rather than for someone who's never been in the meat grinder, And I just feel like they're mouthing
off. Of course you would say that. You're never going to work for them.
I just met a lot of yeah, and I just feel like, well, how can you say that? You've never worked in the meat grinder. It's like an animator saying, I'll never work for Disney. I'm like, yeah, but the experience you can gain by working for a company that's got, it must have been invaluable for you.
The greatest thing I've learned from working Marvel and DC is professionalism. And it's nothing you learn on the same scale working for any independent publisher.
Right.
Because I tried to bring my A game.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was working, big company that knew the business, and it's like every person I've worked with within there, it's like you just bring your best work, and it's something to experience. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't work on their stuff for whatever reason, but I could imagine that I mean, I've worked for studios. I've actually worked for some big name clients, and the work environment on the floor is so different from just working for yourself. When you work for yourself, you've got that illusion of all the time in the world, whereas working for a company where time is money, deadlines are everything, and when the pressure is on, you want to bring your A game, but you also want to make the money, so you've got to come in on budget. And working in that environment is something that you need that discipline to really understand what you're actually asking of yourself when it comes to working on your own comic, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like I definitely, like, when I was working for Marvel in DC, you get the job done and give it your best. I've worked weekends, I worked nights, I worked whatever to bring in pages. And mind you, like, I'm not the greatest example of a success story, but I put in some work with DC. It was mostly on Aquaman back when Peter David was writing and Jim Calafiore was penciling. I did a lot of, and mind you, like, I'm not the fastest inker, but when I was at Marvel, most of the work that was due the next day, it was, I one of the main reasons, because I walked up to the office all the time, back in the day when you could do that. It's post 9/11, everything is different.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to make a silly joke, but now I won't.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, note to self: if I ever work for Marvel, cannot walk up to main office. Well, I was imagining sort of in the same building. You can't sort of go up to the editor and just like, "Hey, what's happening?"
Yeah. I mean, you can't like surprise him. No. The last time I went there, it was like, receptionist goes, "Who are you here to see?" It's like, everybody, whoever will see me, you know, you can't just do that.
Yeah,
You got to have like call ahead to your editor and say, okay, I'm coming up. I'll be up. Let the reception know and yada yada. But I used to walk up there all the time. Oh, it was great. But I forget where I was going, if I was going anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, your point. No. I guess I've never really picked your brains about your experiences working for Marvel and DC. I've known you for so long, and it's almost like, oh yeah, Peter, yeah, we chat, and I mention your name to some people, and like, Peter Palmiotti, no way. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a really cool guy, and we just chat every now and then, and and I've never really sort of spoken to you about those days, and it's amazing to me.
Well, we've known each other. God, I remember, my podcast, Independent Road, which in the old days, it was audio podcast on TalkShoe. I got to get back to that because I still enjoy listening to podcasts. Although I'm watching 1,000 videos nowadays, and as well as live streams on Facebook. God, there's too many options. I'm an artist. I'm always trying to soak things up. But yeah, let's, like, I've known you forever, and if you have any questions, by all means, yeah, I'm here. Ask me anything.
Cool.
Just a general, like, my greatest first breakthrough was like with Marvel, and I only inked 3 pages. But I believe that was the first breakthrough I had, as far as getting inking work through Marvel. It's like I always, there's in the days back when there were New York Comic Conventions all the time, and go up and just try to, I was super shy before I started doing comics, but I would try to recognize faces and place the names, and I would go to the comic store and literally go and flip through every comic, say, okay, Ed is the editor on these 3 books. I got to keep in mind if I want to work on those books. It's like whatever. Like I just strategize, like, how I'm going to tackle. But I just happened to, I don't know exactly, it's been so long, but I got like inked 2 pages on a I believe it was Iron Fist backup story on Marvel Comics Presents. If you remember that book, it was a mishmash of, like, they'll get a recognized name to do the headline story, and it was like a flip book, and it was like 3 stories, and 1 by a comic professional, 2 by unknowns. Usually, like, those were like maybe tryout pages that they developed into a story or something, or just the artists were not yet ready for prime time. That was their testing ground, and I got the opportunity to ink cups. And I remember the day I got my check, I had to go there and pick it up. Or maybe I just asked, I said, yeah, I'll come and pick it up. You don't have to mail it to me. I remember picking it up, going outside. There was a payphone on the corner. I called my best friend. As I opened the envelope, and I was like, I got my first novel check. Listen, it had Spider-Man, logo on the outside the envelope, as well as inside in the on the check itself, and it was for $100 or whatever. But I was ecstatic and just jumping up and down. And my friend was laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine how exciting that would be. I mean, because you always hear those stories about people. Oh, how did you get started in comics? Well, I was always a fan of blah 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 blah, and then I got to work there. And yeah, I've had those experiences with major studios. I would have. It sounds like you did your research, which is something that people don't seem to do so much these days. It's sort of almost like, look at my stuff, look at my stuff, look at my stuff.
Yeah.
And less about. I mean, one of the things that I learned with this DC submission was one of the pieces of advice was very similar to what you did, and that was treat them as the client, know what they're actually after. And what they're after is something that even if they say things like, we're looking for fresh, new and inspiring talent, it's that the fine print is, but that can draw like Jim Lee, or that can keep a consistency to the brand. And I guess I'm really not trying to poke fun at them. What I'm saying is that it's, by knowing who the client is, you can set up an expectation and kind of understand what the language that they're talking. And it takes some experience to get that right. I mean, going in blind is perhaps the worst thing you can do. I mean, people who do that and get the job, well, I just think they're just damn lucky. It just doesn't happen. But if you think of stalking them, but then sort of like edge that off a little bit, so it's not illegal. And it's basically you're looking at your future employer. That's how you really have to treat them. You have to say, okay, if I ever want to be employed by these people, how do I speak their language? What is it that they're after? And you try to suss that out. It's basically like going for a job interview for anything else, really. But we sort of had stars in our eyes for so long that it just feels like it's we're not worthy, or oh, what if I get rejected? Am I going to feel like I'm not worth anything anymore? And I still suffer that every now and then.
And that's okay.
Soon. And you still get that starry-eyed thing, but I guess what experience gives you, and the only experience I can really speak to is the experience of working for big ad agencies. I mean, that's sort of where I've worked mostly. You begin to see them as humans, and you begin to see them on the floor as people who they're trying to make money for their company so that they can make money tomorrow. It's just like any business, it's just bigger. And what it comes down to, if you want to, the cynical way of looking at it is, yes, you are a commodity. They need to see that you can provide a consistent product for them that they can then go out and sell. If they can't sell it, you've no real use to them. Sure, you can meet up with someone who works there and have a beer with the guy, but unless it's a sort of a business transaction where you provide me with pages, I pay you a paycheck, and then I go out and sell your pages and make a profit. It's essentially what it boils down to, and I guess that's sort of something of that is lost in when it comes to these sorts of almost dream jobs, as it were.
Yeah.
Am I?
I found that a lot of the people I was working with, they wanted to hire me. It's like they're fans first. The comic book editors are fans first, and they love working with new people, and they want to get you on board, but they have X amount of work, and more often than not, they can only hire maybe one person every once in a while,
Yeah.
because they get their books, they got their team set up already. They got a call on that are next, and you're the new guy stepping in and saying, "Hey, look at me! I do work too, and want to work here." And you really have to push your way in nicely, but
Yeah.
going back, like, after I got a couple of, like, the second inking gig was for a Punisher annual. And I think the page of that I inked was like 95% background.
Wow.
And that established me as not hating backgrounds.
And so, what are you saying that you became the go-to guy? It's like everyone else hates backgrounds, and like, oh, Peter sort of likes
Well,
backgrounds.
it's like, you know, working in art, you can't fear anything, especially if people are going to hire you with certain things in mind. And as an inker, especially, if you're against inking highly detailed backgrounds, then you're going to get less and less work over the years.
Yeah.
I wound up, my next gig after that was working at Valiant, and that was essentially, I was 100% background anchor during my time at Valiant. Other than the what was it? I snuck a page in that I did full lengths on.
Yeah.
But Bob Layton was running the show back when, and this is not the new Valiant. This is the old Valiant. But it was after Barry Smith's time there, which I would have loved to work under Barry Smith. But Bob Layton, is a talent unto himself.
Yeah.
And he knows his business, and I was grateful to get the job and work there. But I really wanted to do full inks. It just didn't happen, so I snuck in a page of full inks. I took a page home and did just inked it and brought it in the next day. And I saw, as I inked it for an inker who worked there, and he handed it off to Bob. And I, from my art table, I saw that happen, and I saw his face turn red. That was my greatest moment in Valiant. It was like, you're not going to give me work some on my own. But it just wasn't going to happen. He had like sort of one-on-one art classes in his office every once in a while, and every time I spoke up, he just I don't know if he had it out for me, or he just was looking to train me harder, but he didn't. He wasn't mean to me. He just didn't make it easy for me to gain any ground. I don't know, but which I sort of work best against the brick wall.
Under pressure, that's your thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a hard ass, then I sort of love that. That works. I try to do things better. I try to work harder. I try to be fast. It definitely works. But I love working at Valiant, and if I have an ultimate goal, which I do, and it is sort of mapped out, it's to create that sort of atmosphere that I worked with while I was at Valiant. And, I dream of one day having a full-fledged studio with artists and writers and inkers and colorists and even animators and computer designers, like all in one place. That's what I'm working towards. But yeah, so it was a great experience, and I met a lot of people. Cal Fury being the biggest friend I got out of there, but I could run into anyone from there, and just start chatting again like old times. It was a great experience.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love hearing those experience stories, because it kind of reminds me about, studios around the world. They kind of have the same. When you're working in a dynamic studio, there's just something about that experience, the good and the bad, that it's almost like you meet those people up again, and all of a sudden you remember the old war stories, and you remember the dick bosses, and you remember the times that you had, and that nightmare client or whatnot. And yeah, I still get that with some of the people that I run into. One guy who did very well for himself, he's the reason I get a bit of work through Nickelodeon here in Australia, to go in and do like their ad packages. It's where, if I say, oh yeah, I did some work for Nickelodeon, that's the most exciting thing I can say about it. the actual grunt work. And it said, oh yeah, so what did you do there? Did you like work on Dora the Explorer? I said, well, Dora was kind of involved, but no. Basically, whenever they do, those networks, Christmas comes up and they have like Christmas competitions, or this is what's coming up on Nickelodeon over the Christmas season, and they do. I was putting together those things, and sometimes I was even doing some of the more. It was creative to a point, but like you said, working under pressure, Nickelodeon was definitely an under pressure job, but in the nicest way. It wasn't people cracking the whip and swearing at you constantly. It was, oh yeah, so we would really like you to come into the office, because we've got to have, 20 of these elements for the Christmas special ads for the fortnight in by, tomorrow. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, sure. Okay. And then I'll sit there, and there's just this atmosphere as you're working to deadline, that there is a lot of back and forth, but there's a lot of really good vibes. It's one of those spaces where everyone there works as a team. They're really into what they do. They're into the culture there, and one of those rare spaces. And the only reason, like I said before, the only reason I got that is because I worked in a small studio when I was still cutting my teeth as an editor with this young guy, Cameron, I can name him. and we were mates, and we hung out together, and we got sent on little interstate excursions for clients that set up these mobile tents, and we were like these on-site editors at these events. And so we would often share a hotel and go out to dinner and see movies and whatnot, and just like take in the sights of the city that we were at, and we would hang out. And so when they needed an extra, that's how you make your network, and so he would just call me up out of the blue, but before even advertising, and say, oh, listen, are you free for the next couple of weeks? It's okay if you work from home. We just need someone. We're desperate for someone, and we'll pay you rate and all that sort of stuff. I'll be like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And working for them is just such a pleasure, because there is that history, and so we'd catch up for lunch and be like, oh, remember that guy that we used to work for? And oh, do you know what happened to this client? And yeah, those old war stories sort of come back. And so yeah, it's just reminding me about how similar working at those studios is to pretty much anywhere else,
Yeah. But it was, working at Valiant was a great experience. I did a lot of random books. It was all background inking, which was like either buildings or lots of scenery. I remember working on Eternal Warrior. Stan Drake was the inker, and he was also like an old newspaper artist guy, and his stuff was phenomenal. Like just his lines, like it looked like it was effortless. Like I didn't see him work. You know, he wasn't in the office. I just got the pages after he was done with them, and it would be like, okay, just finish what he didn't finish. And I was
Right.
just
Yeah, I
glazed.
was wondering.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was like, you know, just fill in, you know, buildings or cars or whatever, you know, maybe finish off some trees he didn't touch or whatever. But everything else was inked. And I was just glazed over what he did do and like marvel at it. And
Yeah.
I did get the, but it was an office party and he was already drunk when he showed up. So, so it was great to meet him, but it wasn't like any deep conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, like that always amazes me, like hearing those sorts of personal stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like such great times, Peter.
It was pretty sweet up there.
Yeah.
Now I could actually now okay with this story always goes my other story, which is while I was working at Valiant, because I was pushing so hard to be a full anchor and not pleased about my standing there. An opportunity arose for me to go work for Defiant Comics. Now, Defiant, like, you know, Valiant was Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter moved on and started another company called Defiant. And I was working at Valiant during the day, and then evenings, for a while, I was doing some background inking for Defiant, which was pretty hilarious. So I was working for the two companies that Jim Shooter made, which was awesome. Growing up, Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief forever at Marvel, but also a phenomenal writer. And for him to start a comic company made sense. And I think he did a ton of things right. He made the writing first, and that's, to me, that's the reason why Valiant is, it's a different incarnation, but it's still alive today.
Yeah.
Because these characters had a life to them and a history to them and 3 dimension to them that, lasted billions of other publishers come and gone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I always wonder like, from your experience, like what is it about a company that sort of makes it stick around? I mean, obviously Marvel has got the cinematic universe, and when it had I remember in the 90s, it was the Revlon dude who was affiliated with Disney or something that came in and had made majority share. It was all, money. With the big ones, but like the smaller companies like Image and Valiant, and now stuff like, I don't know, what would be equivalents? Arcadia, I guess, or
well, there was another company back when called CrossGen. You remember CrossGen?
No, I never heard of that one.
Oh, okay. There was a company based out in Florida, started by a millionaire who said, I'm going to make comics. And he hired and relocated like a tribe of artists and writers to Orlando or somewhere nearby, whatever. And started coming out with books. The thing is, he grew the universe too fast, and it was all one genre, or at least it looked that way.
Yeah.
It was Brandon Peterson. He was sort of he became head art director, I believe, at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, my Katera is running wild. It just randomly opened up and started searching. But yeah, he became art director at some point. He's an artist that did X-Men title, Marvel way back when. And yeah, they had like high quality paper and coloring, published comics, and just really awesome looking books. I think I read one. I forget the title of it, but it was all like fantasy, sort of superhero kind of comic.
Yeah.
And it really, like pushed Marvel to step it up, I think, at the time, and really changed the market for a little while.
Right.
And it could have succeeded, but he didn't have the smarts about, how to approach that. I think he threw like it, but something like that, and it just didn't work.
Right. This story does sound familiar. I might know it, but just not by name. But yeah. I mean, it's always unfortunate when you see something with such potential. Kind of, you want it to succeed, but it ultimately fails, and it's like, oh damn, I really, really wanted that, because it sort of it validates the dream, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be stories like that. There's always going to be like, where comic book artists, inkers, colorists, whatever, they'll flock to a company, like, years and years and years ago, there was Penthouse Comics, and that was a thing for a while. And anybody that worked for them, regardless of what you think about the subject, everybody flocked to them because the page rates were like serious money.
It was the same here in Australia. Like if you were an artist for Playboy or Penthouse, you're right. The rates are they're basically what artists should be getting paid.
Yeah, they're like magazine rates when magazines were a thing. But who knew magazines would go away? But but yeah, they got paid serious money, and some took it seriously and did some good work, and most of them just got paid good money.
Right.
But yeah, being a publisher is a hard thing. And you mentioned Arcadia.
Just one of the names I keep seeing pop up. I mean, there's a few that I've been scouting because they've got these talent searches. I'm not sure if Top Cow is still doing their yearly talent search. Or maybe that's the one but I see Arcadia is around a lot.
Is that the Mark Smiley? It's now with Boom. Is that the name of it?
Couldn't tell you. No, Arcadia's got this sort of orangey gold female head logo. Looks almost. They've published things like the Dark Crystal prequels and a lot of sort of indie fare. They're one of those smaller publishers that do this sort of thing. And no, the other one I was thinking of was Top Cow. They're basically small ones, independent ones. You see them a lot on Comixology, like when you're looking through publishers, and they've got a fair amount of titles out there with a fair amount of talent on their books. And I just sort of see them around a lot. And I just sort of think about back in the day when I was collecting, it was just sort of, for me, it was end of high school, beginning of college, university, and I was getting, the X-Men titles from Marvel, but I was also getting Gen 13 from Wildstorm, or was
Right.
was it Wildstorm, or were they were then incorporated into Image?
Well, they were.
Goes?
It was Image, but they were, their own
Right.
studio.
Yeah, they had that the imprint that called Wildstorm, or something like that. And yeah, I remember collecting the Gen 13 title, drawn by, was it J. Scott Campbell who was on that? But
Yeah.
To me, they were the other publishers. At the time, you had Dark Horse, you had Vertigo, Valiant. We'd see all of these particular studios. But is there a similar studio that you could sort of point to and say, well, that's what they're doing, this is who they are now, or anything like that?
I'm not too close with anybody currently, other than trying to build my own empire.
Yeah.
But there probably is. I mean, I know, like, there's groups of artists working together at different small publishing, kind of companies. I just can't name anything off the top of
Yeah.
But you got collection communities of artists, working together.
Yeah. So I guess this segues into something that's also very relevant, which is I've been reading some articles today on how the independent, self-published comic scene is changing the industry, and one of the things that you were talking about, how this millionaire who set up his own company in Florida, while he was not successful,
right.
Sorry.
I disagreed, right?
Oh,
Sorry.
You disagreed?
No, I agreed.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this millionaire who set up his own company, and while he wasn't successful, you said that Marvel took notice of what he was doing. Do you sort of feel that? I don't know. Is that still something that's relevant today? I mean, is that sort of what's happening with indie titles at the moment? I mean, are they getting people like Marvel and DC to take notice of what independent titles are producing? Or
I think that will always be the case. I mean, Marvel and DC want to be the top company, and they have the powerhouse companies behind them, with an endless fund of money and whatnot. So, like, if they're always looking for talent and what's succeeding outside their own company. So, if they, like, they picked up Mike Allred, who was doing Madman, and having success doing that, and now, Mike went on to do X-Men titles and whatnot, and just, I could name a bunch of people, but it all comes down to the same thing. It's like they pick up talent that, if you have a successful book, if you have a big following as an independent creator, then of course they want you to come work for them. That's like, if you're making a movie, do you want a famous star in it, or nobody? There might be cases where you want the nobody, or but more than likely you want your movie to succeed. Just even before it's out of the gate. Just attach a name to it. So that's exactly what they're doing when they pick up independent writers to and work on their books. Rick, remember, was a totally independent guy. Now he's in the Marvel fold.
Yeah. No, I remember what I liked about reading certain art or looking at certain artists and reading certain writers is that more often than not, I would pick up a Marvel title, right? And I'd see, oh, what's this? X-Men is written by Chris Claremont. This is once you've absorbed the story and you've really gotten into it and you're really enjoying it. And on some level, you want to know, who gave me this experience? Who's responsible, for these good feelings, And so that's generally when you look at the writer and, I say, oh, there's this guy called Chris Claremont. Never heard of him. I was a teenager. It was the first, X-Men comic I've ever picked up. But when you see the name again, once you've sort of recognized it, you tend to follow the art. Well, I tend to follow the artist. I mean, that's why, like, who's that guy? Joe Madeira.
Yeah.
Who worked for Marvel. I loved his style so much. I just follow him everywhere, and currently he's got a game coming out based on Battle Chasers. And I'm like, hell's yeah, I'm going to, pitch to that Kickstarter campaign. I just love the art style. And I've played.
But the funny thing is with him is he was around for years and nobody gave him, like he was working on a Marvel X-Men title.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of my friends in my circles back when he was doing that stuff were like looking at his work. Well, it's a little Americanized drawing style, but it's also a little anime. It just looks funny, It's like nobody loved his work back then. He developed it further than where it was at in those early stages. But I liked his work back then, and I saw the potential in it. I didn't think he would go as far as he did, but he's definitely a pleasure to look at his work, and he knows how to really charm your pants off just by what he draws.
Yeah. Oh boy, I loved his style because in the X-Men comics that I was reading at the time, this is mid-90s. Okay, this is when X-Men got rebooted and they had those record sales of the variant cover for X-Men 1, and I think Jim Lee drew that particular issue.
Right.
So they already had a big name on board. Chris Claremont did the writing, so I guess he was a big writer even then. Like, they basically brought the talent, and then just went, okay, we are crafting this to make us money. And they pulled in what, $1 million on the first issue on the first month or something like that, which was a big deal for them. Or no, they sold 1 million copies, and so they made like 8 to 10 million on it. And that was one issue, but they basically sold it because people wanted to buy all the variant covers. So instead of dropping what it was back then, $2.99, let's say, on one issue, you ended up dropping 3 times 8, $24 on the same issue, just so that you could have 7 others in mint condition, and that's where they really made a massive impact. And so, my point was, everyone was drawing the Jim Lee way, everyone was drawing the Marvel way, and then along comes someone like Joe Madeira, and I saw him first. I mean, I'm sure he was around for a while. I think he was doing Uncanny. I saw him on the Phalanx Covenant, which then turned into Gen X, and I just thought, wouldn't it be awesome? I will follow this guy on Gen X because it's going to be an X-Men title, and I really hope he gets it. And then they gave it to this other guy called Chris Bachalo, who... The first time I looked at it, I was like, it's not Joe Madeira. It doesn't have those awesome proportions and the manga style and all that. And I hate it. And then years later, I looked back and I was like, Chris Bachalo's the shit, man. I mean, this guy, he's got an original style and I love it. And I kind of he had a massive impact on my style as well. And yeah, to anyone watching, I'm really sorry the screen's frozen because I'm, again, just gesticulating wildly.
Well, my cat's interrupting my flow. So.
Yeah, but no, I did love his stuff, and which is like one of the things that I was thinking about seriously last year, and that is, how do you build an audience? And for the longest time, it just sort of felt like we had to do the convention circuit and slowly get audience through sales of books and return customers and trying to be the face of your own brand. Yeah, that works to a point. And it is good that you sort of said this up front, and that is that, someone like Joe Madeira worked years on X-Men. I mean, he must have been working. What was it? What was the story with him? Was he hired at like 16, like he was a child protege or something? Is that the story with him? I know he started working really young.
Maybe that was it.
Okay.
He did quality work from the get-go, but he really opened up when he furthered his manga style.
Right. And so, yeah, so he's been, like you said, it's good that you sort of mentioned that he'd been working at it for years before it took off. And when Battle Chasers came out, that was something that a lot of fans followed him on. And that was an independently published thing, or maybe independently published as in he wrote it, he drew it. I think he might have color. I'll have to open up my yeah,
Probably
but he
color.
definitely did the art.
Yeah,
probably didn't color,
Yeah, he did the art.
Yeah. And he did the writing on that too, didn't he?
Probably.
But that was like
I don't think
his breakaway
story-wise. But yeah, I mean, the art and the concept, and it's like it had everything going for it.
Yeah.
But except that he didn't keep with it.
Yeah, like
he moved on to making better money elsewhere.
Video games.
Well, he probably didn't he do Magic cards maybe first, and then went games.
Yeah.
I forget.
I think he might have done some work for Blizzard, but he definitely did games. Like he designed 2 games, Darksiders and Darksiders 2, which I played, and it's like, this is the art style that I've loved forever, and now I can play it in a game. It's brilliant. I was all over that. I mean, people who critiqued it, I was just like,
I remember you posting about that.
Yeah. People who were saying, yeah, Darksiders is okay, but it's a pretty boring game and it's pretty pedestrian. I was just sticking my fingers in my ears, just going, la, 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 no, I love it. I really do. And, but yeah, he did go on to other things, but like what you said, he spent years before he developed a style and gained an audience. But that was relatively quick compared to, someone like me who goes to conventions, and now I'm just starting to get an audience. And if I make 20 sales at a convention, I think, hey, that's a pretty good convention. And but you kind of want to go up from there every year. You do want to get that audience coming to you from other means, and you sort of want word of mouth to spread. And that's the dream. But this guy has got Marvel behind him, has got a couple of video games that were very well selling behind him. When he comes out and runs a Kickstarter campaign, he can get a couple $100,000 on that, or even, what was this, 1.2 mil or something like that. That's kind of cashing in on that experience a bit. And that's, I kind of feel that that's sort of where to go as an independent. Do try to associate yourself with some big name titles, get that experience. And then when you come back, if you've gained any sort of audience, that audience follows you because they know who you are. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, if I was more of a go-getter earlier, and I just like decided early on, okay, I'm going to do my own book. And, like, instead of like reaching for Marvel and DC, if I had success, I would have stuck with it, and I would have been a independent guy and still an independent guy. I would probably definitely see things differently now, but worked both ends to a degree. It's I see it as like early in Nicolas Cage's career. Like, he worked very obscure, weird ass independent movies, and then he'll go and do a blockbuster with a well-known director and stuff, and he went back and forth, and then it's like, that's the kind of career you want, because you get on a something, it's on a 6 o'clock news on ABC. You could tell anybody that in the States, and then they'll know what you mean. It's you just somewhere where more people will see you, and they'll see you because that's their they come home from work and they go turn on the news, and that's the news they turn on now. So it's like, it's not a bad thing to work from all in DC, or Dark Horse has been #3 forever. It's I mean, because Dark Horse, I guess, works more like Marvel DC than Image does, but I consider Image independent, even though it's huge.
Even though they're pulling in the bucks,
yeah. It's, I mean, like if you have a creator-owned product and you go through Image, the little eye on the cover helps sell some of your books. Definitely.
That sort of branding is very, very important. If we could wrap this up and go back, before we do, go back to the whole idea of drawing and commissions and getting audience and stuff. I had a social media experience a little while ago, which was very enlightening, because you use social media, you promote Human Art Studios through that. What's been your experience with gaining an audience? Is there stuff that you've noticed people look at, or is there stuff that people interact more readily with? Is there stuff that doesn't work?
Yes. And I'm not giving secrets away. No. It's like, I see what I have been capable of doing, which is really only touching the surface of what I think I should have doing. If there's anything I don't have, it's product. And I've had things here and there, but I'm going for the long con, as you say, and so I have a much bigger plan, I guess, and hopefully it's not going to take me another 10 years to get to it, but I should have things rolling in a month, hopefully. And that means I've been talking about it, about getting assistance doing what I'm doing. I love my girlfriend; she's supportive as everything. But I need a person actually physically helping me, even just nonsense stuff. That's when you're running a whole business, everything is time consuming. And as far as reaching out and growing an audience, everything works. I mean, if you're just a nice person and you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, you're on whatever, Instagram, if you just like comment on people's things and like it, people will, be nice in return. Which is a great thing, especially like when, in real life, you can have a small batch of friends who are really close, but you go on Facebook, you go on these other things, and all of a sudden, you get tens of people telling you how great you are, or hundreds of people. It's a really nice feeling. But at the same time, you got to realize, like, the amount of time they took to interact with you is 1 second out of their whole life. If you want something a lot more solid and ongoing, then, to me, it's all about creating quality work.
Yeah.
And it's what I put my heart and soul and sweat into. And, so I think, it's internet is like, it's a visual thing. So you want to have pictures. Pictures are great. If you post like, oh, I had pancakes for breakfast, that's good. A lot of people like pancakes. But if you, and post that with, I had pancakes for breakfast, I'm sure you're going to get twice the amount of likes, or maybe even 3 times the amount of likes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also audience too. Hey, like if Neil Gaiman says that he had pancakes for breakfast, 100,000 people will like that.
Yeah,
But
and write a book about it.
Post it, yeah. But if I post it, who gives a crap? I think that's the difference, But then that's also an interesting point as well. I've had this experience of, to an extent, if you give the internet what it wants, it will reward you for it. Like I recently did some fan art. I'm trying to sort of do less and less fan art at the moment. And, one of the contentious things that is going on in Australia is like a lot of the artists are saying, we really should stop doing fan art, or selling fan art at least, because it's technically illegal or whatnot, even though companies tolerate it because it does promote their brand. But I like doing fan art because it's a recognizable thing, and I can sort of test my skill on that, on getting likenesses and things. And I did this piece for Game of Thrones. The season finished, and I posted it on a few places. I'd just been working on it. I just saw this scene in one of the episodes. I thought, oh, that's awesome. I'll do that. And it's gotten a heck of a lot of love. And I thought, oh, okay. So, I felt like I'd cracked Tumblr finally, because that's one of the social media things that I just don't get.
Yeah.
It's like, what are people liking there? Why aren't they liking my stuff? I mean, what do I have to do? But I posted that. They loved it, and I've gotten like the most likes I've ever seen on social media, which is, it shouldn't encourage me to do more. But it's sort of addictive. But other than that, I noticed that people are interacting with it in really positive ways as well. But it also brings a lot of recognition to what I do, and there's been definite knock-on effects where people have sort of checked out other stuff that I've done. And in a way, if you wanted to sort of technically say that's how fan art kind of, makes you money, which you're not really supposed to do, all right. But, it's also sharing the love for something with other people. And yeah, I could have sort of classified in that kind of, you're being nice, you're being social, you're speaking a language to potential fans, or, fans and potential fans of your work. You're sort of speaking a common language, as it were, and it's a language of something that you have in common. And by sort of the internet, sort of like imagine it sort of like this beast. It's very picky with its food, and so if you occasionally feed it what it wants, it kind of rewards you for it.
Yeah. But you know, so many artists like that, you know, aren't doing comics, that they're strictly just, and they're doing prints, and they make names for themselves strictly by doing fan art alone.
Yeah.
You know, not anyone I know personally, but
Yeah, but like, what? Yeah, sorry, keep going.
no, well, there might be one or two actually. There's this guy Buzz who's a New York guy, and he used to have parties, buzz parties. But he's a phenomenal artist, and he did a couple of comics, but he's not really, he really wasn't cut out to work in comics. Yeah, because he did a couple random books, and that was it. But he just does prints, or you know, just pieces, and his style has developed and developed and developed, and it's awesome. And he has high end buyers for his work. I don't know where he gets them, but it's like, you know, that's his career. It's like that's all he does.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where do you find the better buyers? You know, and it's more than likely it's outside this community.
Yeah. I mean, there's that other thing. You know, it's like to sell to another artist. Well, I think that's more strengthening your network. You may have made a fan, but you've really actually made a network connection. You know, you want to sell to an audience. You know, that's why, like, one of my things here in Australia, there's this sort of mentality that, oh, if I buy your stuff, you'll buy mine, which, you know, it almost feels like a bit of a pity buy. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of talk about that. I mean, you know, it's like, I don't think I strike up a conversation beyond hi if I don't like you for something other than, you know, it's like, if I'm really like interested in you in your writing or your art or your social networking techniques, or, you know, it's like above and beyond. It's like make a friend with somebody, not because they live on the same block with you, but because they're an interesting person, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, I never
it's
thought of
like,
it that way.
yeah.
So on some level, there is an interest there, and if it's a mutual interest in work, it's a good thing, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting take. No, I could definitely take that on board. I never really thought of it that way. It's sort of like an admiration for what you do. I guess that's the optimistic view. Yeah, because I've sort of been burned a little bit by having the research buy. You know, they're buying your stuff because they're going to make a book and they want to see, you know, what you did, and you know, how you went about laying out your work and all that sort of stuff. And you know, it's okay. So I made a sale, but what doing on it, they're analyzing it on a completely different level. You know, I sort of been burnt by that, but I like that. I want to be optimistic. You know, I like your take is that you know, people sort of see a potential in what you do. I think I can stick to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had a number of people, or, you know, maybe 90% of the people who are following me are because, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm a name, but I'm a name because my brother's name. You know, it's like, well, I know there have been people that have latched on to me as a means to getting to my brother. And it's like, well, you know, I have no problem with, you know,
Yeah.
You wanting to talk to my brother, but why are you talking to me about talking to my brother? You know, it's like,
That's
I'm not going to get you any step closer.
yeah.
You know, you want to talk to him and talk to him.
Yeah,
Famous
yeah,
sister-in-law, you know, it's like, you want to talk to her. No,
yeah.
nobody has approached me to talk to Amanda, but, um, you know, it's like, I, I, I I love that my brother's successful. I love that, um, you know, he works his butt off, and
Yeah.
and he has definitely earned all the success he has. Plus, you
Mhm.
know, he should be a big name in the industry, and he is to some people. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, he's been working for years and years and years and years, and
Yeah.
uh, bless you, kitty cat. Don't sneeze on my artwork. But yeah, you know, uh, I would love to on any number of these subjects that we covered so far. But yeah, we should be going. We've been doing this a little while.
Yeah. I know, and I've got boring
Uh,
stuff to do. I've got a few chores and then kids to pick up. It's yeah, it's one thing I should have mentioned at the beginning. I'm kind of like a full-time house husband at the moment, but
yeah.
it suits me because I get to, on occasion, spend an hour or two doing this. And I thought, oh, you know what? I haven't talked to Peter in a while. I've got to talk to Peter.
So here's what I did. It was like more of an outline. I drew a bunch of lines around there. It's hard to host a uh, YouTube video and draw at the
Yeah.
same time, but I did a little more work onto it. I'll tighten it up, and I'll post the finished result. I post a lot more on my Instagram of those works.
Yeah.
But this has been a blast, and yeah, we could talk for hours.
Yeah, we could, can't we? Because I kind of want to keep working. I just got into shading now, so while I'm
Yeah,
talking, yeah, this is what I got to on this current commission, which I never really said what it was. It's a commission from a local guy. He's got sort of like a Dungeons and Dragons playing group or something like that, and they've each got a figurine, and he wanted a poster of them all together. And yeah, that dwarf in the lower left hand corner is a girl with a beard. And I've really enjoyed doing this piece because doing ensembles is not one of my strengths. I'm better at doing like single poses and single characters and stuff like that. But
I
sort of
think
putting them all together has been fun.
I think it looks good. I have actually been thinking about doing something like that myself,
Yeah,
simply because I have never really attempted one.
yeah,
And yeah, it would probably suck the first 18 times I do it, but you know, as artists, we just keep at it until we perfect
yeah.
it and master it. And
Yeah.
I
But the thing is that I like that I'm getting more of these sorts of commissions where people are coming to me with their original ideas.
yeah,
It's not so much can you draw Superman for me, or can you even do a mashup of Spider-Man and I don't know, he's a Hobbit or something like that. It's oh, I've got this idea. Can you draw it for me? And I'm like, hell's yeah, let's do it. Let's do this thing. And it's so much more fun, because they've got to get out what's in their head, and I've got to put it on paper for them, and I really enjoy that process. Yeah, but yeah, like you said, I think we should wrap this up and maybe talk another time then. But yeah, it's been
yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Um, I do plan for everybody who's stuck around a long conversation. I do plan to get back into the studio synergy where I invite everybody who wants to join. And it's a bunch of artists, pretty much like this, just talking and working. Um, and I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to start that. You know, life is chaos. I got to set everything up ahead of time, but you know, I want to buy a house, and that's going to be a block of time that, you know, once that happens, that I'll lose. But yeah, I'm going to get back into the swing of thing and making more videos and posting more things. And but pleasure having you on, Paul.
Thanks, man. It's always great talking to you. And man, I think that I've been the most candid on opinions today that I've ever been. So if you get any hate mail, just redirect it to me. So.
Well, I'll make sure to put a couple of your links in the video description box if you want to mention anything just on the video right here.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed things like Instagram at the moment. I think that's sort of that, and Facebook is where I mainly live. I try to post things on DeviantArt as well, trying to get more of a following there. But I'm loving Instagram. Instagram allows me to take pictures of sketches or screen grabs or whatnot, and it's just a great way of communicating with people.
Yeah, and I'm loving it myself. It's yeah, it's just so easy to post and just track other artists, and easy to find artists, and yeah, it's just amazing community. And then there's all of these like share accounts that share wonderful art. So you can spend hours on there just like gazing at art.
yeah, it's a great platform. But anyway, we're talking on another subject. So yes, we do. I gotta eat something. I gotta do chores. It's horrible. Anyway, thanks, Peter. Catch you later.
Thanks, Paul. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. Talk to you later.